Hey Beyond the Gates fans, Dani Dupri is getting cornered by somebody who claims they know her big secret, and that is already a shocker. And at the exact same time, Heather the Impaler is back in town talking about loose ends, which honestly sounds like somebody could wind up doomed before this week is over. So, is Dani about to panic and confess? And is Grayson about to realize he is the loose end everybody should be worried about? It's Radhika from Radhika, and we're going to talk about Beyond the Gates spoilers for the week of July 20th through the 24th. But first, please hit subscribe if you're not already following us. So, this week on Beyond the Gates, the drama is coming from all sides, and I mean all sides, because we have romance mess, family mess, medical panic, and possible criminal chaos all fighting for screen time. Monday starts us off with Tomas Navarro sharing his relationship angst with Grayson Perez, and honestly, that might be one of the healthier choices anybody has made in a while. Kat already told Tomas he needs guy friends, which is true, because he cannot keep running to Eva every time his life gets stressful. At some point that starts looking less like friendship and more like emotional confusion, and that is a disaster waiting to happen. And Grayson, of all people, probably does understand complicated choices, shady history, and trying to stay one step ahead of your own past, so I actually liked that pairing. And then, of course, the Bill and Dani mess picks right back up, because apparently peace was never an option. Bill races over to Dani after Haley complained about their run-in, and he is out here acting like because he kept their elevator hookup secret, Dani should now trust him to keep all future hookups secret too.
Sir.
That is not romance. That is a pitch deck for bad decisions. Dani tells him it is never happening again, and Bill basically answers with, "Never say never," which is exactly the kind of line a man says right before making everything worse. Honestly, I do not think this is over, not even close. The chemistry is there, the guilt is there, the recklessness is there, and that is soap fuel. Now over with Ted and Chenise, they hit a relationship milestone, and this one actually has some softness to it, which means the show will probably punish them for it later, because that is how soaps work. Ted told Chenise he is falling in love with her, and now it looks like she may be ready to open up too. Monica already nudged her to stop guarding her heart so hard, and it seems like Chenise may finally take that advice. I mean, good for them, but also Leslie is absolutely going to hate this.
You can just feel it.
The second she realizes Ted is emotionally moving on with another woman, she may go fully unglued, and I am not even being dramatic. Okay, maybe a little dramatic, but still. And then Nicole and Kat are talking relationships, which feels appropriate because Kat's love life is one long stress response at this point. Nicole learns more about Kat's plan to move into the condo with Tomas despite that public proposal disaster, and honestly, the whole thing still feels like a consolation prize. It is giving, well, the engagement blew up, so here's a real estate compromise. And on top of that, Tomas apparently has feelings about their economic disparity and not wanting to feel like some kind of kept man. Which, to be fair, I get. Pride is real. Ego is real. But also, if you are building a future with somebody, you cannot be counting every emotional and financial imbalance like it is a courtroom exhibit. That relationship has pressure on it from every angle. So then Tuesday comes in with more Hawthorne family tension, because Isaiah gets blindsided by his dad. And this story really matters because Isaiah has already been struggling with where he fits in that family since coming back. He was the black sheep, Jacob was the golden child, and that kind of dynamic does not just vanish because everybody is older and trying to be civilized. Elon making a sincere effort to get closer to Isaiah sounds nice on paper, but sometimes these late attempts at reconciliation land badly, especially if the hurt is old and deep. I wonder if Darlene is pushing Elon to fix this because she has been trying, in her own very Darlene way, to be more supportive lately. She still hates Leslie, which honestly is one of her more relatable qualities, but she has been trying to accept Eva despite all the chaos tied to her mother. And speaking of Eva, she gets crucial advice from Kyle. That could be medical, emotional, or both, especially since she is still recovering and likely still needs follow-up care. Eva has had so much thrown at her, and I think one of the more interesting things here is how she keeps becoming the emotional center of scenes even when other people are supposedly the focus. She is affecting Ted, Tomas, Chelsea, Isaiah, all these people, and that clearly bothers Kat, which we're going to get to by the end of the week. Now, The medical storyline gets heavier with Anita being devastated over the gene mutation news. She learns that what she carries was passed not just to Danny, but also to Naomi, and that has her absolutely crushed. And honestly, that is understandable. Even when science tells you this is nobody's fault, family guilt hits hard. Naomi is considering preventive surgery, including a double mastectomy and a hysterectomy, and that is huge. That is not a little casual decision over coffee. That is life-altering, identity-shaking, future-changing. Jacob says he is fine with not having kids, which is supportive, and I liked that, but you know that kind of reassurance does not magically erase the grief Naomi may be feeling. Anita may be able to give Naomi perspective, but she is also clearly going through it herself. And then Nicole updates Vanessa on her love life, because apparently Nicole is still spinning plates romantically with Carlton and Kyle. Honestly, I do not know which one she wants more either, because it seems to change by the day. That is not a judgment, well, maybe a little, but mostly it is just funny because Nicole is out here acting like a woman browsing options while everyone around her is drowning in emotional catastrophe. And she also finds out something about Ted, which could very easily be tied to Chenise and those love declarations. So then Wednesday gets even messier. Deanna runs into a handsome stranger who needs help, and whenever a soap uses the phrase handsome stranger, I immediately assume trouble. I mean, come on. That is not random. That is either temptation, setup, manipulation, or all three wearing a nice shirt. Joey has already been skeptical of Deanna, and with Randy keeping an eye on her, I would not be shocked if somebody engineered that encounter. Deanna is already in deep, and the fact that she keeps publicly talking to and hugging the ghost of her father Doug is, honestly, wildly alarming. You would think somebody in Fairmont Crest would gently suggest therapy instead of just letting that slide. But no, everybody in soaps minds their business until the haunting turns into a felony. And Nicole and Chenise also talk about Ted, and both women are forthcoming. So that sounds like the kind of conversation where truths get spoken plainly, which is refreshing, but it could also mean lines get drawn. If Chenise tells Nicole that she and Ted are all in and already exchanging I love yous, that is significant. It confirms this is not a fling. This is becoming real. Now, Naomi gets surprised by Bill's reaction to her BRCA gene news, and I am very curious about that. If Bill suddenly gets deeply emotional, protective, or intense, Naomi may not know what to do with that. He could be thinking about losing her. He could be thinking about guilt. He could be thinking about how fragile everything is. Or he could just be having another one of those moments where his health issues are making him more raw and less guarded than usual. And then Danny goes to see her parents, and Anita asks if there is something she wants to share. That right there is a loaded question. A dangerous question. A panic-inducing question. Because if Danny hears that and immediately thinks, do they know about Bill? Then her face alone could tell on her. Whatever she asks for, Anita refuses, and I am dying to know what that request is. Was she asking for support? For silence? For advice? For a pass? We do not know, but clearly she does not get what she wants. Meanwhile, Haley meets Randy and says she did him a favor with Lynette, and now we are in full diabolical territory. Because if Haley really had something to do with Lynette disappearing, that is dark. And then she goes one step further and says the next time Bill has one of his spells, she will make sure he meets the coroner instead of a doctor.
Ma'am.
That is attempted widow behavior. That is not even subtle. Haley is sounding downright berserk, and I mean that in the most soap opera way possible. So then Thursday keeps the momentum going. Anita gives Laura a gift, which could be sweet, shady, symbolic, or all three. Vernon has advice for Bill, who is being stubborn, and that probably ties into Bill's health because the man is clearly not okay. He is running around, making reckless choices, having spells, brushing off concern, and acting like denial is a treatment plan. It is not. Haley and Randy keep talking, and she warns him to stay away from Mona, which is interesting because Haley always wants control over the board. Everybody is a chess piece to her. If Randy gets pulled toward Mona and church and becoming a better man, Haley loses influence, and I do not think she can stand that. June has interesting information for Naomi, and I am very curious what kind. Because this week is so packed with secrets and whispers that interesting information could mean almost anything. It could be about Haley. It could be about shady activity around Orphe jeans.
It could be about Mike.
It could be about somebody Naomi trusts less than she should. And then Smitty needs a favor from Jacob, which may tie into his journalism work. Every time Smitty starts poking around, I assume somebody powerful is about to get nervous. And Andre gets worried about a gift Danny receives, which, honestly, same. A mysterious gift on a soap is almost never innocent. If it is from Bill, that is reckless. If it is from someone who knows about Bill, that is worse. And then Friday brings the final push with Eva participating in Chelsea's live stream about organ donation, which is a meaningful storyline but also one that is clearly going to trigger Kat. Because Kat already told Chelsea she was fine with her teaming up with Eva, but not fine enough to join herself, and now she is apparently complaining that Eva has won over Ted, Tomas, and now Chelsea too. That sounds like insecurity spilling over into resentment, and I think Chelsea may finally push back on it. Honestly, I hope she does. At some point, Kat has to stop acting like Eva existing is a personal attack. Vanessa comforts Danny, and that could be because of Naomi's gene news, but it could just as easily be tied to Bill, because Vanessa knows way too much. Jacob is not happy about something Elon says to him, which tells me this whole Hawthorne family reset may not be as healing as it first looked. And then Joey is stunned to see his sister Heather the Impaler back in the DMV, and she says she is here to tie up loose ends. Now that is a line. That is a villain line. That is a somebody should run line. And if Grayson is one of those loose ends, then yes, I absolutely think he is in danger. And finally, Danny gets hit with Nicole telling her, "I already know." That is the kind of sentence that can stop your heart. But I do not necessarily think Nicole means she knows about Danny and Bill. Danny will probably assume that, because guilt makes every vague comment sound like a confession trap, but Nicole could be talking about something else entirely. Still, the secret is circling, the pressure is rising, and Bill is meanwhile having another bad day at the office, disoriented, and asking what the hell is happening to him. So, everything is stacking up at once, which usually means by the end of the week somebody cracks. Now let's talk theories, because this is where the real fun starts, and honestly this week is serving up multiple possible disasters. First up, I think Danny's secret panic is going to get worse long before the actual truth comes out. I suspect Nicole's, I already know, is being framed to make Danny spiral, because soaps love that kind of psychological torture. Danny is already carrying guilt about Bill. She is trying to convince herself it is over, and then Bill keeps pushing. Anita asks if she has something to share. Andre gets worried about a gift. Vanessa knows too much. And then Nicole drops that line. That is not one red flag. That is a parade. So my guess is Danny starts reacting like somebody exposed her even if Nicole is talking about something else entirely. And you know how that goes. Sometimes the cover-up behavior becomes more incriminating than the original act. Next, I'm betting Bill is not done chasing Danny, and that alone could blow up multiple relationships at once. He is already using secrecy as seduction, which is toxic but effective in soap terms. Danny telling him never again does not feel like closure to me. It feels like the setup to another moment of weakness. And with Bill's health getting worse, there is also that added danger that desperation might make him even more reckless. He could start acting like time is short. He could start wanting what he wants without thinking through the fallout. Honestly, a man who is disoriented, emotionally unstable, and still pushing for another affair is not a safe romantic choice. That is a walking disaster in dress shoes. Another possibility is that Bill's health crisis becomes the thing that temporarily shields him from accountability. I could see the show using his spells and confusion to create sympathy right when the affair mess should explode. If he collapses, or if his symptoms get worse in front of the wrong people, suddenly the conversation shifts from "what have you done?" to "is he okay?" And that is classic soap timing. It is not a stretch at all. It would also make Danny feel even more conflicted, because guilt mixed with concern is powerful. She might feel trapped into protecting him longer, especially if she thinks his condition is serious. And here's another one. Haley is sounding more and more like somebody who is ready to send Bill 6 feet under if it benefits her. I mean, she literally talks about the coroner instead of the doctor. That is not idle irritation. That is a threat wrapped in sarcasm. So I wonder if Haley becomes the real danger in Bill's storyline, not just his medical condition. If he keeps slipping, and if she sees an opening, I could absolutely see her deciding that widowhood is preferable to losing control. And if Randy is tangled up with her too, that makes everything even uglier. Because then, it is not just one unstable person with motive. It is a whole little network of bad choices. Next, I really do think Grayson should be worried now that Heather the Impaler is back talking about loose ends. The show is not being subtle. Joey is surprised to see her, which means even he did not expect this move, and Heather specifically says she is here to tie things up. That sounds targeted. That sounds intentional. And since Grayson is the name floating around as the likely loose end, I could see him being in genuine danger by the end of the week. Maybe not dead, because soaps love to drag out menace before they cash it in, but definitely rattled, cornered, or forced into action. Honestly, if I were Grayson, I would not be relaxing anywhere alone. Another possibility is that Tomas confiding in Grayson is not just friendship filler, but story positioning. I wonder if the show is quietly connecting Tomas to whatever danger is coming for Grayson. Not because Tomas is shady in this moment, but because proximity matters in soap plotting. If Grayson gets pulled into something with Heather, Tomas may end up seeing or hearing something he was never supposed to. That could pull him away from the Cat-Eva emotional triangle and into a more dangerous lane. And honestly, Tomas knowing law, crime-adjacent people, and messy emotional truths could make him surprisingly useful. Now, over in the Hawthorne family, I suspect Elon's attempt to reconcile with Isaiah is going to land harder on Jacob than expected. We already know Isaiah gets blindsided by his dad, and then later Jacob is not happy with something Elon says to him. So this feels less like a neat family healing arc and more like old wounds being rearranged. I could see Elon trying so hard to make it right with Isaiah that Jacob suddenly feels displaced, judged, or exposed. You know, the golden child role sounds nice until the family starts questioning what that favoritism cost everybody else. And if Elon says something that reframes the whole family dynamic, Jacob may not like being forced to see himself differently. And another theory, Isaiah may actually respond better to Eva's support than to anything Elon says. I wonder if the emotional anchor in this story is not going to be the father-son conversation at all, but the way Eva helps Isaiah process it. She has become a stabilizing force for several people, and if she gets good advice from Kyle first, she may be especially grounded. That is one reason Kat is so pressed by her, honestly. Eva keeps mattering. She keeps being the person people turn toward, and that changes the emotional map of the show. Next, I think Kat's resentment of Eva is about to get louder and less defensible. At first, Kat could tell herself she had reasons. Boundaries, discomfort, history, whatever. But once she starts complaining that Eva has won over Ted, Tomas, and Chelsea, it stops sounding thoughtful and starts sounding jealous. I could see Chelsea finally pushing back and basically saying, "No, Eva did not take me. I made my own choice." And that would be good for Chelsea. It would also force Kat to confront the fact that not every relationship shift is a theft. Sometimes people just like somebody else's energy better, and that stings. I mean, it is harsh, but it is true.